Oh, we're starting now?
Yeah. Tell me about Augustus. What do you think?
Oh man.
Okay, let's go through the plot of Augustus.
Okay. Well, Augustus is about the rise
Of
of
Augustus.
of Augustus, who is basically the first real Roman emperor. Because Caesar was the first real Roman emperor, but he wasn't considered an emperor um, initially. He was just basically a what was it, consulate or something that accumulated a lot of power.
Yeah, they like give him all the power, don't they? And then he leads the wars, and then he's like, I'm not gonna give this power back,
Yeah,
basically. He's like, now it's a dictatorship.
yeah. And after him
Is Augustus.
is Augustus.
Because he gets stabbed by all his friends.
Yeah. And then he writes a letter and he's like, look, Augustus, now you got to deal with all these fucking stab
Like politics and all these people that want to stab
stab
you.
friendly
Yeah,
people. Yeah.
yeah. And then Augustus takes over, and then the book is about his reign, and like
Described from the points of views of various people
yeah,
living under his reign, except for himself, until the very, very end.
yeah. It's a whatchamacallit novel. It's the
The very end is a chapter strictly written from Augustus's
yeah.
point of view, basically explaining the reasoning behind the choices he made throughout his
And he
reign.
does a bunch of stuff. He like fights those guys, and he like consolidates Rome and avoids civil war, or like wins a civil war, kind of. And then his daughter is like being a whore. Just like
That's a very accurate description.
just like
I don't think there's any other
she
description.
is. She's like doing it on purpose to like rebel. She's like having sex with a bunch of dudes, and then she falls in love with Mark Antony's son. And Mark Antony tried to overthrow Augustus, and Augustus had to kill him. He put him to death. And then he's planning to kill Augustus and take power. And Augustus finds out, and he has to exile his daughter and kill Mark Antony's son. And then he's like old and sad, and he writes a letter.
I feel
and
like
he
we just
dies.
like spoiled this entire book.
Well, you shouldn't watch this video if you haven't read the book. Read the book first.
Well, I suppose, yeah. Yeah, read Augustus.
We'll put a spoiler warning at the beginning, obviously. Okay, so the question is, why is the book good? Why is it good?
Well, through the first, let's say, 90% of the book,
Mhm.
I feel like that's fair. It's interesting, but it's not a really, really good book.
Yeah,
You
I'd agree with
see
that.
you see people's opinions about the things that Augustus is doing in his reign, things that in the end end up uniting the Roman Empire in peace,
Hmm.
right? But in the short term, they're extremely brutal and extremely,
Yeah,
I guess, questioned by people here and there. But it's interesting to see how both Augustus' enemies and allies think of him um, as they come and go
yeah.
throughout
It's
the
like
book.
it's not even super deep. It's just like no, it's like good. It's like fine. I agree. And then you get to the end. In the end, you get Augustus' point of view on everything. And then throughout the book, actually, the Augustus like shows up and he says something, and it's usually very philosophically deep, but it's only like one sentence. And they're like, "Oh yeah," and then I heard Augustus like say this thing about like poetry, and then he like ran away.
Yeah, the thing is, you don't know in the book who Augustus really is because you haven't heard his thoughts or his sayings except from the mouths of other people.
Facts.
So you see all this activity happening, um, and basically you see Augustus through his outward actions, right? And it is difficult to judge what he actually is trying to accomplish through most of the book, except in certain.
Yeah, because it's all secondhand knowledge,
Yeah.
right? Like it's a you ever read Savage Detectives, same thing. Right? All the main characters of the book actually don't speak at all from a first person point of view. It's a bunch of people talking about them in the past, like interactions they had with them, things they did, and you have to like construct your view of them only from everyone else's point of view. Just like a problem, obviously, if you want to like actually know someone.
Yeah, and you don't understand a lot of what he does until the very end. And the very end is so great because it's basically him justifying all his decisions or all his choices he made throughout his reign in the book. and he writes this in the years prior to his death. So basically, he has already accomplished everything. He has united the Roman Empire in peace.
Yeah.
He has basically destroyed his enemies.
He's murdered his enemies like viciously. Yeah.
Viciously, while like keeping cool and being like a super, I don't know.
Yeah.
Inspiring guy, I guess. You never hate Augustus at any point during the book.
No. And he's always like super calm. That's what you like. That's like only like through line you get through like all the characters. They're like, he's always like calculated and calm, and he like never makes a rash decision. And he like makes very calculated decisions about like who he kills and who he pardons and like what he does with his armies.
Yeah, there's even a particular scene, I don't know if you remember, that
I remember everything.
It seems he doesn't. Well, you read the book more recently than I did, so you probably remember more than I do. There's a scene where he's in the Colosseum, and all he does in the end, he explains, is for the benefit, at least what he believes to be the benefit of the Roman Empire, and just stability.
Yeah.
Of the
I remember
Republic.
Because he like doesn't like it. Yeah. He doesn't like the like. He shows up late because he doesn't like the like violence. He only likes the chariot races, and he bets on them. He's also like a huge gambler. He gambles like all the time, which is whack.
He probably does that because he takes almost. He's very calculating when dealing with.
Like
I guess his job, everything else.
So it's like an escape.
Yeah, he's very precise and calculating.
Risks. Yeah, I'd buy that. Okay, so we get to the end, and what does he say? You had to condense his philosophy. Like what? Like why does he do what he do? And like why does the end make the book like good enough that we're talking about it?
I suppose what he says in the end. I mean, he says a lot. It's almost like there's an epilogue in War and Peace at the end, where basically that is very similar to this, the ending of this book, where Tolstoy just talks about history and all of this, basically all of the implications of history and the way we should look at time and the way we should look at events and the people that are involved in those events, the important players. And basically Augustus has sort of a similar, I guess, summary, where he says basically all I did was for the purpose of stability.
Yeah. He says, like, I sacrificed everything. Like, I sacrificed my own life. Like, I did everything for Rome. Like, the whole goal was, like, what was best for Rome and what was best for, like, society as a whole. And, like, that was what all the decisions were. And it was, like... But he, like, didn't like it. He, like, that's the kind of wacky part, is he's, like, sad, kind of, about, like, all the things he had to do. And, like, all the decisions he had to make.
Yeah, but because of him, the Roman Empire reigned for, I don't know how many thousands of years after he united it under one banner.
Yeah, but he's like, well, he's not sad, I guess. He's like, well, he's like tired. He seems like very tired at the end. But he's like, he like didn't ask for it. Yeah. It's kind of like what he never wanted to be the emperor. He never wanted to like have to do this, but he felt like it was his duty once he like was the emperor to like do these things.
And it also shows, it's partly a commentary also on if you have the right leader, sometimes it's better to concentrate power in the hands of one person rather than many.
Okay.
But the thing is...
No, it's good. Okay, why? Why? Defend.
If you have somebody like Augustus... who's very precise and calculating. Mm-hmm. And he knew throughout the entirety of the book, basically he's like, this is what I have to do. And this is what I believe has to be done. And he never thought about whether he was wrong. He took advice from other people.
Yeah.
Right? But once he had to make the decision, he made the decision that seemed the best possible decision. And he was very careful about choosing that particular decision. And all the things he accomplished was because he attained ultimate power and was able to accomplish those things in a very short period of time.
Yeah. Okay. But, like, Yeah, okay, but it's like you live by the sword, die by the sword, right? Like if you have Augustus, you have a leader like Augustus, and he has ultimate power. It's great for your society because you have like a benevolent leader who like actually wants to further the like long term goals of society, and he has like good ideas about how to do that. Like he like is making the correct choices.
Yeah.
But like also, if the next leader
It's a very risky situation.
yeah, is like Stalin, then like all of a sudden your country makes a lot of way worse decisions. Or like Mao, and like it's like collapses your entire civilization.
Yeah, I guess what he realized was that maybe not necessarily that power should be concentrated in the hands of one person, but that he believed that for stability to happen, power had to be concentrated in his hands.
Yeah.
Rather than
well, that was kind of the Roman whole theory of the case, right? It was like that's why Caesar is allowed to become like a de facto emperor, is because the like Roman Republic, the laws were in place where in times of emergency they could elect a single authoritarian leader to like have all the power and make all the decisions so that they could like avert the crisis, and then after the crisis was over he's supposed to cede power back to everyone else. But that Caesar never did that. He never like gave the power back. So then
for the remaining Roman Empire, it was just emperor after emperor.
But like makes sense, right? Like clearly the Romans were aware that like in times of actual crisis, like in the case where Rome is fracturing and like there's a civil war and like the whole empire is like on the verge of collapse and you're being attacked by barbarians and like it's just like everything is fucked. You need someone, like your only chance at that point is a single person that can make all the decisions to like subvert bureaucracy basically. But like we don't have that mechanism anymore because like
the crazy thing I think is that he did such a nice job of like bringing the Roman Empire as one unit that like it didn't matter a lot what Caesars or emperors came after him. Like there were so many terrible emperors that came after him, and yet the Roman Empire stood for thousands and thousands of them, right? Maybe not thousands and thousands, but hundreds. I'm not sure exactly how many, but
well, it's interesting, right? Because it raised the question of, so we have like the question is like, can one person really effectuate that much change on all of history? Right?
Does one person have the right to be like, I am seizing power in order to bring stability?
Well, yeah, but like also does that even work, right? Like wasn't a like if we switch to like a different example, was Napoleon, the virtue of Napoleon's existence as an individual, did that like shape the course of history, or was like Napoleon as an individual inevitable by like societal forces around them? That's the like question.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing because what Tolstoy says is kind of exactly what you said. Napoleon's basically a product of his environment, right? He is the man that ended up in that position at that period in time.
Right.
It just happened to be. Whereas I think Augustus, the book, or Augustus the person, at least in the end, takes more of like the person does matter sort of view. Like exactly. The individual does matter.
Yeah, Augustus says the book, like John Williams, seems to be arguing that like that at that moment in history, the individual and their temperament and their like the way they think and the way they act and the way they process information was like critical to the like resulting history that happened after them, right? And like if Augustus had been not Augustus, the Roman Empire wouldn't have ever been the Roman Empire.
Might even have fallen because like basically after Caesar died, after Julius Caesar died, it was just split into so many different factions,
right?
That it seemed impossible to basically bring all that scrap together.
All right, so what's your decision? Who's right, John Williams or Tolstoy?
I don't know. I don't want to give the well, it depends on the situation answer.
Well, okay. Obviously in some cases, Tolstoy's right. Obviously, like you have to be right. Like not every person matters. Like so, like
it's true. But the thing is, like I like individualism so much that I like my gut instinct is like, yeah, Augustus. Yeah.
Yeah, well, like as Americans, we definitely think that like that's like right, because our whole thing is built on this idea that like you as an individual can change, like can have an effect on the world, and like you have to like wield that power.
And that can be thrown off the rails, obviously.
What do you mean?
Like Ayn Rand. Like Ayn Rand makes a lot of great points. I love her. I love reading her books. They're entertaining. But like, she goes off the rails sometimes.
As in, like, yeah. A pure, like, as in, like, I am the individual above all is probably not.
I don't need anyone else.
Yeah.
Basically, fuck anyone else that is not me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the book. Why, like, what about his, like... Okay, so you read the book and you come away, like, admiring Augustus as a person. But, like, objectively, from, like, a 21st century perspective, he did, like, a lot of things we would consider very fucked up. Like, executing his enemies and, like, leading giant campaigns where thousands and thousands of people are killed. And, like, seizing territory and stuff like that. It's like, why? What is it about him that makes us, like, respect him and resonate with him?
The thing is, like, we see throughout the book, based on his reactions, that he is disgusted by violence. Like, he does not like to see violence.
Sure. Okay, yeah. Like at the Colosseum and stuff.
Yeah. The thing is, at that time, he did those things because he believed those things to be the things that needed to be done in order to bring stability.
Mm-hmm.
So, his whole philosophy is that my means justify my ends.
Sure.
Or my ends justify my means.
The ends justify the means. Yeah, 100%.
My ends justify my means.
Yes.
Yeah. That's basically his philosophy. And he did that. He killed not only his enemies, but the children of his enemies to ensure that no one would come back years later for revenge against the Roman Empire. He was very, very methodical on that point.
Yes. Okay, but, like, why? So what is it? Like, why do we not read the book and we're like, Jesus Christ, this guy was psycho? Like, the ends don't, like, why don't we argue that the ends don't justify the means, right? Like, that he should have allowed the Roman Empire to, like, break apart because the, like, amount of murder and destruction and war he had to wage to hold it together just wasn't worth it, right? Like, he should have been like, no, like, I'm not going to do this. Like, I don't want this. Like, this is not worth it. And, like, allow the chips to fall where they may. Why don't we, like, why is that not the response to the book? Because it feels like if I just tell you the story, right, and you're like, you should be like, well, that was kind of fucked up. Like, he did some fucked up shit.
Yeah, he killed children.
Yeah, like, repeatedly. And not once are we like, oh, like, this guy sucks.
I believe it's because, like, if he hadn't killed those children, then they would have grown up and killed Roman children.
Yeah. Okay,
or if he hadn't, like, killed his enemies would have obviously killed him.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
There's something about the way he, like, is very calm and is very, like, calculated and is very sincere in his, like, he's very sincere in his, like, belief that he's not doing it for the accumulation of power as such, right? He, like, he's been forced to accumulate power to save Rome. And, like, you, like, believe him. And he, like, defends it.
The thing is, he believes that it doesn't matter who is in power. This is what must be done.
Yeah.
And that's why he does it.
Yeah.
And so he has a belief similar to Tolstoy. But the thing is, like, the fact that he does believe that makes him a great leader, which is sort of, like, contradictory to
right. It's, like, different than...
Yeah.
Okay. You're Augustus. Do you believe...
I wish.
Facts. Do you believe the same thing? Right? Do you make the decision? Right? Do you take Caesar's name and you're like, yes, I am the rightful emperor of Rome. I'm going to do what needs to be done to unite Rome under, like, my banner. And, like, steal it away from all the politicians who, like, want to destroy it.
I do not believe that I'm at all as calm and calculating as he is. To any level. But I would do what I thought was right.
But is that what you think is right in that situation?
If I looked at all the other possibilities, and again, he was a child when he was, like, named the heir of Caesar.
Yeah.
if I found one that was appealing to me, that was not me myself, that I thought was like, this guy can do better than I can, then I would have probably backed him in some way. But there were no options like that at the time. So you had to take things to his own hands. I believe I would have done the same thing.
Okay. Then, so if everything Augustus does is about the good of Rome, right? And we buy it. And we're like, okay, yeah, I believe you. Like, it's all for the good of Rome, and, like, you did what you had to do, and, like, you made the correct decisions because you, like, built Rome into, like, what we remember it as. Why does he end the book? The end of his letter is very, like, he like, keeps talking about how he knows Rome's gonna collapse.
Eventually,
like, yeah. Yeah, he knows it's gonna fall eventually. He knows that, like, everything he built actually, like, he knows that he hasn't built anything eternal, right? He knows that all the blood he shed, all, like, the things he did, the, like losing his daughter and, like, losing all of his friends and, like, having everyone die, being unhappy basically because he spent his whole life, he sacrificed his whole life and, like, everything he wanted for the sake of Rome, and he knows all of that is, like, futile in some sense because, like, everything falls eventually, right? Yeah. How does he reconcile that? Like, how is that not a contradiction?
Because that's an urge we all have. I don't know if it's an urge in his case or more of like a legacy thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's like we humans try to build things that last.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Because we have this idea that it will last after we die, and therefore it, in a sense, would be something we have left behind and continues to expand. And even if the Roman Empire does collapse, it would forever be remembered as the Roman Empire
that's fair.
That was created by Augustus, basically. And although that makes, like, no logical sense, because after all, you are, like, dead, it's just something you have to do. And you can't look back at your decisions. The thing is, like, you can't look back at your decisions and feel, like, constant remorse, right?
Yeah.
You have to justify to yourself that you made the right choices, despite not knowing, at least in the end.
Yeah. So, is the argument of the book, is John Williams trying to put forth, there's an argument that, like, the actual highest, like, this is our, like, the higher value, so the rejection of, like, hedonism, basically, the rejection of the idea that, like, you should just live your life for, like, your own fulfillment, like, your own short-term pleasure, right? Like, Augustus should have just rejected the name and, like, gone off to Naples and, like, lived out his life with, like, his wife and children and, like, been happy. It, like, you're supposed to reject that for this paradoxical idea that, like, you must that the most one of the most noble things you can do, more noble than, like, living the normal life, is building a life in which you attempt to build a thing that lasts, knowing that that's an impossible task, knowing that, like, no matter what you build, no matter how stable it is, even if you build the Roman Empire, it will eventually collapse. But, like, you still have to do it because, like, that's actually better. Even though you're not as happy.
Because you could retire again, like you said. He could have just renounced the name and gone to Naples and whatever, lived with his family. But the thing is, like, he would be experiencing the collapse of the Roman Empire around him, right? And he would have known he could have done something about it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, I feel like what he did is it's a pathway that's much more like, yes, I did what had to be done, than renouncing it and seeing the repercussions of it.
John Williams is not very interested in he's not a big proponent of the idea that, like, what you're supposed to live your life for is, like, happiness as we think of happiness, like, normally.
Yeah.
Like, he's very, like, his books are not about that.
Yeah, Stoner.
Yeah, Stoner is not about, like, Stoner is like, no, like, that's not what you're supposed to live your life for.
It's the opposite of happiness. Well, it's like...
it's, like, almost like what you live your life for. I think John Williams is trying to argue that what you live your life for is that when you die in peace. You die in peace, right? Because that's what happens to Stoner, and that's what happens to Augustus, right? Augustus is like, I made all these sacrifices, right? I wouldn't have chosen this life for myself, but I die now with no regret for what I did. If I went back, I'd do the same thing. Like, I'd make all the same sacrifices, and I'd die, like, in peace, knowing I did what I could do, and I made the decisions I had to make. And, like, even though all of this is futile, and, like, no one will, it will eventually collapse, I die, like, knowing that I did what I, like, Like I die without regret, basically.
It's almost living for the final feeling of that you get when you say to yourself, "I did what had to be done,"
Yeah, I did what had to be done. Like
rather than "I did what made me happy."
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's closure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. It's like it's like being able to. Yeah. It's being able to die and not be like, oh my god, I wish I had done like X instead.
Yeah. Or oh my god, I wish I had not done
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah. Like I wish I had like taken over the Roman Empire and like at least tried, right? Something like that. Okay, is that right or wrong? Is that
the gray area is well, another gray area I was going to point out. This is unrelated.
It's
This is
fine.
what I was going to say. It's the gray area between do the ends justify the means
Mhm.
or do they not, right?
Sure. Well, that's like the moral question surrounding all of
That's-
Augustus' actions.
Because as humans we get both of those feelings, right? We're like, yes, the ends justify the means. Like people use that all the time,
Mhm.
right? Because it feels like a legitimate justification,
Sure.
right? But then when we actually see the means, we're horrified by them, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a gray area.
But the ends justify the means argument, the whole problem with that argument
It goes either way.
Well, you're never gonna know until you see
The end.
the end. Right, that's the
Yeah.
problem, right? Like we can look back on Augustus and be like, yeah, the ends probably did justify the means because it probably would have been worse.
Yeah.
Because it probably would have been worse, right? If they had allowed like Rome to fall into chaos and like allowed everyone to like fight to the death. Like, because there's been a lot more war than the war Augustus had to wage.
Yeah. He was more like, I took control. You're dead. You're dead. You're dead.
And now everyone calm down. Which like,
Everything's calm.
so it does. But the problem is, in the moment, you don't know. Because like, what could have happened is like he could have failed to unite the Roman Empire and created like a huge bloody civil war for no reason, and like ends in the same place it started.
Yeah, that's like the problem is like communism tried to do the same thing.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
took over and it was like you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, and then like people kept dying after that.
Yeah, exactly. Then you look back and you're like, okay, the means definitely did not justify the ends there because the ends were way worse. Like we never got to the ends you said we were gonna get to.
Yeah. And Augustus did get to the end.
Exactly.
He intended.
So it's just like, I guess it's just like if you're gonna do something like that, like how big are your balls? Like, do you have the cojones to be like, you know what? I'm certain that like I can, A, am making the right decision, and B, achieve the ends that I think I'm achieving.
That's,
like-
that's the whole argument in like Crime and Punishment too. It's like, do you, as an individual who believes themselves superior to those around you, have the right?
Yeah.
Are you exempt from morality in some cases? Right.
Right. Can you do the thing? Can you be like, I, as the superior human being, like Napoleon, sideline morals basically for a limited period of time to achieve something even greater that like requires me break the like rules of morality. But like in the end, it's worth it. And the answer is like probably not. Like you're probably not that dude.
Yeah. In the case of Augustus, he was that dude. But like, what are the chances? Probably 1 in a million.
Yeah, like very, very limited. Okay, but to tie back to the on your deathbed, is that
The right.
well, okay? Let's not say the
Goal.
right, but let's say that is that better? Is that a better ultimate goal? Like, is that a better way to orient your life than like than what we like currently preach in the West, like in modernity?
I think so. Mostly because the thing is, like, I do my work every day and I finish my work every day that I'm supposed to do,
Mhm.
right? And although I might have not necessarily enjoyed the entirety of my day,
Mhm.
the feeling of having accomplished what I had to do gives me much better peace of mind. Like I can go to sleep much better knowing that I did what I had to do than I fucked around all day and although I enjoyed my day, I didn't do shit. You know what I mean? I don't know
Yeah.
if that's different.
No, it is okay. Yeah. Well, let's nail down. Okay, what do we think? What do we think the orienting principle is for like modern life? If we have to pick one, right? It's something like I don't know.
Oh, people are so focused on happiness now.
Yeah, it's something like your goal is to maximize. Like if I'm counting the total units of happiness that you experience in your life, you're just trying to maximize those, right? You're trying to have like you're trying to do. Yeah, like you're trying to work as little as possible so you can fuck off for like the most time possible, right? Like you want to just like get up the corporate ladder. So instead of working 80 hours a week, you work 30 hours a week. You make plenty of money to pay your bills, and like you get to like watch a lot of TV and like eat a lot of Cheetos.
Yeah.
And like that's supposed to be like it. That's like it.
Go partying.
Yeah, and then you can
fuck
retire.
around,
And yeah, that's like it.
sunbathe, do some
Okay.
windsurfing.
So we can say that sucks. Like everyone kind of agrees that like okay, that's probably not like the best way to orient your life. But if instead we say, okay, what you should do is you should have like a set of things that like you know would make you happy. Not like happy in a short term sense, but like long term happy. Like have a family and like a job that you find meaningful and like you want to go to, and like you do that and you like work hard and you raise your kids and you like die being like, yeah, I like contributed something to society and like I was happy about it and I wasn't miserable.
At the end of the day, I think I would choose having a family rather than power, which is what Augustus chose.
Yeah, that's the question, right? Like, so should Augustus, right? Like, I feel like
Power for the sake of closure, I guess, for the sake of bringing things to
it's like not even power per se. It's like sacrificing all of the things that would make you happy, not even in like a superficial sense, like actually happy, like actually like a family and like a meaning and like a good life. Sacrificing all that for like something greater than yourself, like something greater than yourself, or even your like genetics. It's like you have to sacrifice all that for the greatness of like humankind. That's what Augustus does. He sacrifices everything.
Or for the humans he prefers. Like, this is my humankind.
Yeah, like that's what he thinks he's doing, right? He's sacrificing all his like serious personal happiness for.
The thing is, like, you never know if he would have been happy if he'd chosen the other side. He might have just been constantly regretting.
Yeah, that's true. Augustus is in a unique situation because he's like in a moment where he's in a very, very fork in the road moment where he's like, I either have to sacrifice all of the things I want out of life to do this other thing that has been like foisted upon me, or I have to like allow the world to continue as is without trying to change it. And like there's like very few people who are actually like faced with that decision. Right? It's like very, very, like if someone came to you and was like, okay, would you like to be the president of the would you like to be the emperor of the United States? Like you like
Kind of, but like, I don't know.
right, like you can either live out your life that you thought you were gonna live, or you can be the emperor of the United States. Like that's what Augustus was asked, and like that's like no one's asked that. Like very few people are asked.
Well, he was asked that for like the entirety of his life. That's the thing, right? Because, for example, in the United States, right, you become, anyone can become president, right? Well, except for people who aren't citizens, but well, who aren't born here. But the thing's like you only sacrifice that family life, or basically that personal happiness, for what? For 8 years of your life.
Yeah,
right?
It's not your whole
maximum.
life. You
It's
don't
not
become the
your whole
emperor.
life. Yeah. And for Augustus, it was like from the age of 14. I don't know when he took power.
It's like 17 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he was really young.
Yeah.
Until literally his deathbed.
Yeah.
Which is.
Okay, so then the question is like, is it even can we even compare it, right? Like, if you're never going to be faced with a decision that's that stark, can we even gain anything as like me, a individual person who's like never going to be the emperor of anything, right? Can I even glean anything about how to live my life from the way Augustus lived his life, other than the like basic like stoicism stuff. Like, don't make decisions out of like rage or like frustration, and like be calculative. Like,
he
what
was
your ultimate goal
he was a
is.
stoic, just like literally all the characters that John Williams writes about.
Facts. Yes, that's John's. It's clearly John Williams' goal. But like, what am I supposed to take from that, right? Like, yes, okay. If I'm in the decision, if I ever get the decision to like severely change the course of history by becoming emperor of an empire,
I don't know. It's just sick. It's just awesome.
I should take that. But like, I don't know. Is it? Can you take it onto a small scale, which is like in your individual life?
I guess that's for you to decide. I don't know. It's like he's kind of like, look, this is the way it was. Like,
okay, but you can.
Is he saying that it's better? That's the question. Is he saying like this is the path that he was meant to choose? I guess he is saying that, right? I'm talking about John Williams.
Yeah, no, I think John Williams is arguing that Augustus made the right choice, right? Like Augustus did what he was supposed to do, right? Like he would have been like the thing Augustus is supposed to do, like objectively in that moment, is to accept the burden of like becoming the emperor of Rome and unifying Rome and like making all the sacrifices he makes. So okay, so if we try to make it more tangible, maybe the analog is something like you have the chance, right, to sacrifice your own happiness for the chance not to like alter the course of history, but the chance to like put a drop in the bucket of like the weight of history. Like you have the chance to be like, okay, I can go be a consultant, right, and like make a lot of money, and like I won't necessarily like. And, like, you might even like that. You might be like, I like the idea of, like, doing that stuff, and I'll have a family, and I'll, like, support them, and, like, I will, like, be a father, and, like, I'll be happy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Or you have a chance to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice all of that, and you become, like, I don't fucking know, like a social worker. And you make, like, shit money, but, like, you...
have a family or whatever.
Yeah, but you do something that, like, just... For all this, and it like sucks. Like being a social worker isn't fun, and like it's like there's something, but you don't like it per se. But like doing it like causes you to like add your little individual drop to like the weight of history. Like you turn the boat like this much, just like a minuscule degree. It's like are you supposed to do that? Is that what?
And you have personal freedom, right? You can. Like the weight of the world doesn't lie on your shoulders.
Sure, it's like it's not it doesn't like fit perfectly. Yes, because it's way less stressful to be that person than to be Augustus.
I think before asking the question of whether I would take the mantle or not, the better question you should ask before answering that question is, or the better question you should answer before answering that question is, if I choose not to. Is the feeling of regret going to eat away at me for the rest of my life? Right? And you don't know that for sure.
Probably not, though. Probably not.
It depends. Right? It depends. It depends on how much of that weight lies on your shoulders specifically.
Yeah, no. I mean, like in a normal person context, you're probably not gonna feel that much regret because like you're not gonna feel like I could have done this monumental thing, but I didn't for like my own happiness. You're gonna feel like, well, I like lived a good life, right? I don't regret it. Like I worked hard and I didn't hate my life and I like had a family and I raised some kids and like I feel good about that.
But some people might feel like all this happiness that I received is undeserved.
Yeah, you might feel that way if you like really think about it. Yeah. But like, are people really gonna think about it?
Like you're happy in the moment, and then you have those like that intrusion, right? It almost seems like your happiness is sort of an illusion. Then you have that intrusion in your mind, like that pang of conscience that's like, I did not do my duty.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like I never served anything greater than myself.
Yeah.
Like, not really. Like, I didn't sacrifice for the greater good of, like, history.
Yeah. Which is, like, something that's, like, all of basically mankind is like, yeah, you must sacrifice yourself for the good of mankind. You know what I mean?
Well,
not... It's like the ultimate... It's the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah. We, like, can't get away from it. Even in, like... America, right, which is like probably the most individualistic country ever to exist. And like even then, it's like
It's honorable.
it's honorable,
yeah.
right? Like that's why you respect soldiers. That's why you respect the troops, even though we live in a country in which there are no drafts and no one is forced to serve, and they choose to serve, and they like know the risks, and yet you're still like, I respect the fact that they like sacrificed their life for like mankind. They like chose to do that, and they died, and like we respect it because they like sacrificed themselves for the greater good. Even though like in America we're like you could do that, and we'll respect you if you do, but you definitely do not have to if you don't want to. Which is like has its drawbacks, I guess. So you have a lot of people who don't want to make any sort of sacrifices for like humanity.
Purpose.
Yeah, like mankind as such. All right, is that it? Have we concluded Augustus?
I think we have. I think that's a good synopsis or summary or
Philosophical exploration.
Yeah, analysis.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's Augustus.
Thanks everybody.
Facts. Thanks, everybody.